Well, welcome to the 2022 annual town meeting. We'd ask all of you to have a seat, please, so we can get started. And we'll start as usual with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like you to remain standing for just a moment to a moment of silence in memory of all of the deceased local public servants who have passed away during the past year, whether they be teachers or firemen or police officers or any appointed town employee, elected town employee. Let us pause for just a moment. Thank you. Please be seated. Our quorum tonight is 50 people, and I think we're beyond it, so I think we don't have to worry about counting or anything for a change. I'd like to introduce the people who spent the last 6 months creating the budget and implementing a spending plan that brought us to this moment tonight. Members of the Clinton Finance Committee, over on the far left, your right. Bob Latini, Bill McGrail, Aaron Powell, Mike Jakonski, Paul Cherubini, and Barney Hastings. Thank you for your service to this community. Members of the Select Board, Chair Sean Kerrigan, John Busno, Matt Kobus, Ed DeVault, and Julie Perouse. Thank you for your service. And also with us tonight, of course, is Michael Ward, Town Administrator, Robert Gibbons, Town Solicitor, and our new Secretary for tonight's meeting, sitting down front, Ryan Roulard. And I'm Terry Engano, and I'll be your moderator tonight. So let me quickly go over the rules of town meeting. All questions, comments, or discussion should be directed to me. I may not know the answer, but I can redirect your question to the appropriate person for a response. To speak tonight, you raise your hand, you wait to be recognized by me, and then you come forward to one of the microphones and make sure to state your name and address before you speak. Please, no personalities in your remarks, and let's keep our discussion focused on the article that we're talking about. The only votes I count are those seated, so please have a seat rather than stand in the back. The only people in the hall right now should be registered voters in the town of Clinton, or those few residents, non-residents, that I've given permission to be here. We do have one new procedure to handle amendments I want to talk about briefly. All proposed amendments should be presented to me in writing. That part is not new. But if you wish to amend any article, please come down front and obtain an amendment form from Ryan. They look like this. Just fill them out completely, which is your name, your address, the article number, and then actually write out your amendment, what you want that amendment to say. And that way it'll make it easier for Ryan and easier for me too. And we would appreciate that. So when the time comes, if you want to do an amendment, please see Ryan down front to do that. Unless I hear an objection, I will dispense with the formal reading of the warrant, as all of you have a copy in front of you. So let's get this started. Article 1.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to receive the reports of the town officers.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, so Article 1 is simply to officially accept the annual reports from each town department. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please raise your card now. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of all elective officials of the town as provided by Chapter 41, Section 108 of the Massachusetts General Laws. Said salaries and compensation to be effective from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and to raise and appropriate a sum of money therefore.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. That simply fixes the salaries and compensation for elected officials. We do this every single year. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, cards up, please. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 3.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to revise the current classification plan required under the personnel bylaw, whereby the new classification plan will consist of 9 classifications and 15 steps, as proposed by the 2022 Classification and Compensation Review prepared by the Collins Center for Public Management.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, Article 3 concerns the new salary grid. You're being asked to accept that new grid as proposed by the Personnel Board with assistance from the Collins Institute. And this grid determines salary ranges for non-union town employees. And the article has been approved by the Select Board and the Finance Committee, and the money for it has been included in this budget that you'll be voting on at the next article. Questions? You're already here. Questions, comments, or discussion? Yes.
Been a lot said online, and I just want to clear the air on what this article is and what this article is not, so please bear with me. Thank you. I'm a 4th-generation Clintonian, a Clinton High graduate, a 21-year employee of the Town of Clinton, Department of Public Works. I am the current Personnel Board Chairman and the employee representative on the Personnel Board. In 2017, the town approved an article to appoint a town employee to the Personnel Board. I am that employee. The Personnel Board consists of 5 members: myself, Jaleesa Chenard, Bob Latini, John Baird, and Mary Rose Dickow. Members have many years of service to the town, including the Council on Aging, the Select Board, Zoning Board, Parks and Rec, Finance Committee, as well as Mrs. Chenard's employment in the Town of Clinton Administrator's Office over 20 years ago. This article has been recommended by the Personnel Board, voted in favor of by the Board of Selectmen 2 times, and approved and funded unanimously by the Finance Committee. What does this article do, and who does it pertain to? Employees that fall under the Personnel Board system do not belong to a union. There is a total of 54 active employees at the Senior Center, the Public Library, the Town Hall, Parks and Rec, and 1 Police Department employee. Approving Article 3 would adopt a 9-grade classification plan and create a new 15-step salary grid as seen in your handout. This is what you are approving if you vote yes on Article 3. That's it. Some history on this article. Last September, the town signed a contract with the Collins Center for Public Management. Their scope of work was to provide the town with a market survey of surrounding towns' municipal pay scales. The Collins Center are professionals in their field and have completed hundreds of studies with numerous cities and towns. They were tasked with updating the non-union classification plan and establishing a new salary grid. They completed the work and they gave the town the results. I'd like to read from you the Collins Center report regarding implementation of this process. The Collins Center recommends placing employees in the recommended range. Check. The Personnel Board, we did that. The town will need to make policy decisions on any other adjustments, such as length of service in the position. Check. The Personnel Board, we did that. And in regard to applying a cost of living COLA to the entire pay scale, check. The Finance Committee, they did that. Based on what I just read you, the Personnel Board recommended making adjustments based on employees' length of service in their position and applied a COLA approved by the Finance Committee. The Personnel Board completed what the Collins Center report said was a town policy decision. 2 selectmen do not like the Personnel Board's recommended policy to adjust employees based on their length of service, but they were outvoted by the Personnel Board, by the Finance Committee, and by their own Board of Selectmen, and have now decided to wage a war against it. Selectman Kobus has been advocating against it since he voted for it in the May Selectmen's meeting. 2 selectmen have launched an assault against fair and equitable wages for the employees you see on your list who are tasked with implementing the policies of the Board of Selectmen. The world is a strange place right now, but never in 2022 would I have thought that 2 selectmen would be advocating so harshly against their own employees, 32 of whom are women trying to make a living wage. We have heard many times in the past few weeks that some selectmen, that the unions do not do it this way. Unlike unions, these employees do not receive longevity, merit, overtime, stipends, and are paid on 5 hours less per week than the other 650 town union employees. 35 hours, not 40. Using the argument that unions do it different is accurate. Unions, for the most part, are paying a livable wage. Unions are getting it right. My message to the unions, please don't vote against this to make yourselves whole. Do the work, get your community comparables, and negotiate. You have the power of negotiation every 3 years. Use it to your advantage, not to the detriment of these 54 employees. Non-union employees have never negotiated. For 10 full years, there was no grid adjustments. The first compensation study started in 2016, which is only partially implemented upon completion. In keeping with the suggestions of the previous study, there should have been a market review in 2020 to keep pace with the market. This did not happen. For the long-time employees, if they were in a union, they would be going on their 7th or 8th negotiation with the town. This is only the 2nd time in history that the non-union wages are being reviewed. So I would say yes, I agree with Mr. Kobus. We should support all town employees, not just some. Non-union employees have and always will support the unions. We are all on the same team in service to the town of Clinton. I am providing you with the whole truth behind this article, as there has been much said, in my opinion, meant to demonize the Personnel Board, distort the facts, distract from the truth, and sway your vote with Facebook facts and not actual facts. I would like to set the record straight so you can make your own informed decision of who the Personnel Board is, what decisions they made, and why they made them. One example has been continuously used is that an employee is getting a 60% increase in their pay. Is it true? And who is it? It's the town's licensed electrical inspector, an expert in his field, who has been a part-time position since 1997, 25 years. The position is grossly underpaid at the equivalent of $22.74 an hour, based on a weekly stipend of $4.54, working 20 hours. That giant 60% increase barely puts this position in line with other electricians once adjusted to the equivalent of $36.30 per hour. If this article is approved, it will allow the town to adjust wages fairly, and this is a very good thing. What about the term fast tracking? This is a cute slogan that one selectman has drummed up. However, it's not very funny to the employees who have worked for the town for 15, 20, 25, or 35 years. Ask them if they consider a placement at the last step fast-tracking, or that finally the town is making long-awaited pay adjustments. Shifting a newer employee toward the end of the grid would be fast-tracking, and the Personnel Board would be against it. But to suggest that adjusting employees who have worked for 2 and 3 decades as fast-tracking is absurd. The reality is that wages have increased across the nation. Employees are becoming harder to find. Don't force out experienced staff who run town government, because it will be much more expensive to replace and to train new employees. At the last Selectmen's meeting on June 1st, the hiring of the vacant HR manager and the vacant assistant town manager positions were discussed. Selectmen stated that the salary for these 2 positions was too low. It seems that low wages are only a concern when the town hires new staff, but of no concern for current employees. The Personnel Board adjusted for employee length of service to make sure that the market survey was fully implemented and that Clinton employees would be paid accordingly within the classification plan, based on the length of service equal to their peers in the municipal market. Some positions move multiple steps to achieve this outcome, others do not. The formula to calculate any adjustments was applied uniformly for every position. This really isn't about how many steps an employee moves. It's about adjusting the wages to a fair and equitable salary no matter how many steps that takes. This is the right decision, and the Personnel Board defends it vigorously. There are 54 active employees. 24 positions don't move any steps because their hourly wages fall equal to their years of service. 30 positions adjust on the grid in various ways. All positions receive a minimum of 5.25%. What does this cost? Less than 0.2% of the current budget. Clinton is a bustling small town that operates like a city. Staff is lean, and many offices and employees wear many hats. The town is thriving. The real estate market is high. People are waking up to the town of Clinton. Non-union employees have made great strides to beautify, pave roads, support its seniors with programs and services, create kids' rec programs, reinvigorate library services, add veteran services, manage health benefits, payroll, the town's financials, maintain public records, inspect for health and safety violations, inspect building and code violations, approve building and electrical permits, business engagement initiatives, set property values, and provide collection services. These are among the hundreds of services that the loyal, non-union town employees do to make it happen. Please support them tonight by voting yes on this article. Thank you.
Yes, Ed.
Ed DeVault, 12 Simon Court. The only thing that I'm against and Selectman Copus is against is the one aspect. We're in support of this program. But the part that's getting glossed over is if you have 15 years experience, they're letting them jump up 8 steps in 1 year. Now, no other union operates like that. Every other union in town, I know that these guys are not a union, but they're certainly acting a lot like a union. And if you're at step 9 and somebody adds 5 steps, you're welcome to those raises, but you go up 1 step a year like everyone else. Jumping up immediately to the max step is what's responsible for these insane increases of 20%, 40%. I mean, some people's salaries are going up $20,000. And the reason that I'm against that is that every other union in town has to negotiate for, 3 or 4 months. and they're lucky if they can get 2% and 3%. And the Personnel Board made one presentation to our Select Board, and I disagreed with it being approved, but it was approved. And the only thing that I've been saying is, will you please just sit down with us and listen to some of the concerns that the other selectmen have? This could have been a 5-0 vote at the Select Board, and this would be a non-issue. My biggest gripe is the reluctance of the Personnel Board to just meet with us and discuss this. Unions have multiple meetings over months. We haven't had one. I would just like, all I want to do is have a pay structure that's fair to everybody. And right now, I don't think that this is fair to the other union employees and what they have to go through to get their raises. And we're going to be getting into union negotiations, and I don't know what impact this is going to have going into union negotiations. I don't know if they're going to come in right off the bat and say, well, you're handing out 10%, 20% raises, so now I don't know how they're going to come into that. It could totally mess up the first couple months of union negotiations with everybody else. Voting no against this tonight, all that does is send the message back to the Personnel Board to ask them to please sit down with us so we can come up with a plan that everyone's happy with and that won't cause friction with the other unions. And we can have a special town meeting in a couple months to implement it, and everyone's going to be happy. We're for the increase of the salary. We are for, one of the things I'm upset with is anyone that spoke even remotely against this was immediately demonized. I don't know if you guys drove by the courthouse and saw the artwork that's up on the rock, right? It's ridiculous. Like, we should be allowed to have a conversation, and that's my frustration is that, yes, you're right, like we have met twice, but twice we've been meeting, we've been discussing, trying to discuss it. We've been trying to convince the Personnel Board to meet with us a couple times to have a little bit of back and forth the way like every other employment group in town handles their salary raises. So I'm asking you guys to vote against this, not because I'm against town employees. We're all for everything that was in this study. We're specifically against this one portion of it that is just a huge jump, is totally out of line with what every other union in town does. Please vote no so we can get together with the Personnel Board and come up with a plan that's fair to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Deborah Goodsell, 12 Spring Street, Clinton, and I am your Senior Center Director. And I'm going to ask you to I'm going to ask you to vote yes on this because basically this puts myself and my staff at fair market wage because we want to keep the staff. We don't want them learning from us and moving on somewhere else. We want to keep them here in Clinton making a fair wage. I am directly affected by this as well. And basically, if we don't make that jump, if I was to leave tomorrow, the next person coming in would be making the exact same wage as I make now after being here for 8 years. So I'm asking you to please vote yes on this. Thank you.
Question? Yes.
John Kiddreds, 249 Chase Street, your current treasurer collector and acting administrator of human resources. I just want to say a couple words, and I appreciate a couple minutes. This article isn't about money. The overall actual cost to taxpayers is extremely small. To dispel the rumors that all employees are cleaning up, I am personally in line for a modest 5.5% pay increase. I wasn't moved to the top step because I have only been here 8 years, and even though I am a certified public accountant and a certified Mass Municipal Treasurer, I can respect the results of the study. I am not a lifer, and I'm only worked in my capacity here for 8 years. I am in awe of the dedication of the employees that have been here 20, 25, 30 years with little or no compensation advocate. These people have no voice and no representation. However, they come to work 52 weeks a year with no complaints. They are at the mercy of town meeting to give them a raise. I'm speaking tonight for one reason: to applaud the efforts of one dedicated town employee. For the past 8 years, I have witnessed, at times, an ineffective personnel board that is constantly seeking new members to conduct business. Recently, the board gained a new member who was quickly installed as chair because nobody wanted the job. The person didn't get into this position with a personal agenda or a plan to enrich herself and fellow employees and bypass rules and regulations. I have witnessed Lisa put herself out there for the good of the town, and she has become a target for some because of her willingness to leave personalities aside and do the right thing. She has spent countless hours working diligently on her own time to create a comprehensive plan of action for the town. Instead of a team effort, Lisa has encountered severe hostility that would make most people run and hide. She has done all this for no pay, no stipend. How many volunteers would do that? For all of us, it is refreshing to see such determination from a volunteer on such an important committee. Instead of harassing her and saying she has a conflict of interest, even being on the board, or asking for her to step down because she is an employee, we collectively should be praising this woman in all her efforts. For the second time in the town's history, we have a salary study done by an independent professional firm that we paid for. We have a personnel board, a select board, and a finance committee that have all endorsed this completed study. Why not respect the work done by the professionals? In the last couple of years, we have lost our facilities director, human resource manager, and parks and rec manager. Maybe this study is a recipe to retain qualified help. Thank you.
Matt Kobus, 395 Wilson Street. Throughout this process, it has become quite personal, okay? I'm finding it a little bit appalling that I'm targeting or I'm demonizing anybody, okay? What I've said from the very start is this policy is not objective. There's been no data that's been supplied that, number one, supports that the employees were grossly underpaid. Were some employees grossly underpaid? Absolutely. Should they be paid a fair market wage? Absolutely. Should it be a one-size-fits-all, that if when employees are paid at the top of their range, that they should also receive the same benefits as the people that are underpaid? I disagree. In the 2017 study, it wasn't uniform. There was one employee that received a 0.21% market correction for their salary in 2017. In 2022, this individual is going to receive a 25.3% increase. This individual is within the market range right now without any adjustments. So as a taxpayer, number one, as someone that is entrusted with looking out for the town's best interest, there's been no data presented to us that supports this is the best possible route. The second thing is we're hearing that if we don't do this, these employees are going to continue to be underpaid down the road. Where is the data to support this, right? Coming from the school sector, it's data-driven decisions. Everything is about the data, and we have not seen any data. The quote-unquote attacks on Facebook, it was directed as presenting data so people can see this is where the salaries are, this is what's proposed, and this is where they're going to end up. It's getting information out. The select board voted prematurely without having any report from any study on May 4th. That is not what we were entrusted to do. So to ask for some time to go through and to address this, we were fortunately given a chance to reconsider on the 18th of May. And as Mr. Devalt said, the entire time we're basically asking for more discussion time. So this policy, in my opinion, there's no factual basis to it. I am the first person to say that people need to be paid a fair market wage. Absolutely. But unfortunately, when 81% of your employees are paid within the market range, that doesn't quantify that everybody is underpaid. And longevity should not be, in my opinion, the only thing that's taken into consideration. When Select Person Peruse had asked about performance evaluations being tied into compensation, the answer was no. There's other factors that should be considered. And all we're asking for is to vote no on this, to have an opportunity for the Personnel Board to review their policy and come up with something that is supported by data and it becomes objective. Because if we do this study in 5 more years, we can't move any more steps, right? If they don't add any more steps, so that means that the people who are not at the top are only going to have 2% increments along the way. Is that going to be sustainable to make sure that that person is paid a fair market wage? That data has not been produced. All I'm asking for, show us the data so we can make sure that it's an objective policy it's fiscally responsible for the taxpayers of Clinton. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. That's good. Yes.
I'm sorry, Deborah Goodsell, 12 Spring Street again. I just wanted to let you know that the Personnel Board meetings are open to the public. They're listed on the town's webpage. I attended each and every one of those meetings in the Selectmen's chambers. I listened to the Collins reports, the Collins Center's reports. I listened to the Personnel Board discussing it, talking about it, and I was sitting there alone. It was the Personnel Board and me. So if anybody had wanted to know the discussion or not wanted to know what was going on, it was an open meeting. Anybody could have been there.
All right, 2 o'clock.
When the Collins Center presented their report, the meeting was held on a Wednesday afternoon at 12 o'clock. There were employees in this building who did not know that that meeting took place. There were employees in this building that were not invited to that. So to say that there was a public meeting that was held, yes, there was. But I can't take my lunch break to go down to a meeting at 12 in the afternoon. Make it accessible to people and bring that information to the board.
I believe there was, someone said move the question, which means to end discussion. That's seconded. So let's deal with that right now. You've heard both sides pretty well, I think. I'm sure other people want to weigh in, but we have a big agenda tonight, that's for sure, too. So the motion is to end discussion, and then it's time to vote. So all those in favor of ending discussion on this and going to a vote, please signify by raising your card now, and opposed. All right, that article, that's accepted, that motion, sorry, and now it's time to vote. All right? Any questions? Here we go. On Article 3, on the salary, the new salary grid, all those in favor of the new salary grid, please signify by raising your card now. Keep them up, please, just for a second. And opposed. The motion carries. The article is approved. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a motion to reconsider Article 3. Let's go over reconsideration just quickly. On reconsideration, if you vote in favor of reconsideration, what you do is you nullify the last vote you just took, and we start discussion all over again. And that means you're a masochist. No, I didn't mean that. Sorry. And if you're opposed to reconsideration, the last vote stands and the article cannot be brought up again. So one more time, if you're in favor, we throw away the last vote and we start again discussing. If you are opposed to reconsideration, that vote stands and we're done talking about it for the evening. All right, all those in favor of reconsideration, please signify by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? All right, reconsideration is defeated, and we won't be talking about that anymore tonight. Thank you. Now Article 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate from the current tax levy the sum of $52,362,573, and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $9,400, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $540,181 from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund, and to appropriate from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $150,000, and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $188,100, and raise and appropriate the sum of $2,598,174 from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, and to appropriate from the Water Sewer Enterprise retained earnings the sum of $191,000, and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $21,230, and raise and appropriate the sum of $664,735 from the Rubbish Enterprise Fund, and to appropriate from the Rubbish Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $75,000, and to appropriate and transfer the sum of $32,650, and raise and appropriate the sum of $500,000 from the Landfill Enterprise Fund, and to appropriate from the Landfill Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $814,735, said sums to be used to defray town charges from July 1st, 2022 to July 30th, 2023, as those charges appear in the Finance Committee Report of Recommendations.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second those motions.
Okay, Article 4 is your budget, so let's go to the back of your packet, to the appendix. And what we usually do is we go through each department's budget very quickly. And if you have any questions or comments, wait to be recognized, and we'll see what you have to say, and we can discuss it from there. So you're on the back. You're starting with moderator. Everybody there? Moderator, $100. I need a raise. No, I didn't. No, stop it. All right, let's get serious. Moderator, Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, Town Accountant, Board of Assessors, Treasurer Collector, Parking Fines, Town Solicitor, Facilities and Grounds, Human Resources, Town Clerk, Conservation Commission, no changes, Planning Board, Zoning Board, Montechusett Planning Committee, Economic Development, Insurance Miscellaneous, Police Department, Fire Department, Building Inspector, Gas Plumbing Inspectors. At the bottom of the page, Sealer of Weights and Measures, Electrical Inspector, Emergency Management, Animal Control Officer, School Department, Department of Public Works, Board of Health, Council on Aging, Department of Veterans Services, Bigelow Library, Parks and Recreation, and a variety of smaller departments under there. Next page, the enterprise budgets. Ambulance Enterprise Fund. Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. Rubbish Enterprise Fund. And finally, Landfill Enterprise Fund. Now, the rest of the pages in the back are your budget summary, which is what we just went over, just the summary, and then, of course, the sources of revenue. Any questions, comments, or discussion on your budget? There being none, all in favor of next year's budget, please signify by raising your card now. And opposed? The budget is passed. The article is approved. Thank you. Motion to reconsider. Reconsider hasn't changed. If you vote in favor, we start again. And I go through all those readings one more time. All right? If you vote no or you're opposed to reconsideration, the last vote stands. There'll be no more discussion of next year's budget. All those in favor of reconsideration signify by raising your card now. And opposed? Reconsideration is defeated, and we won't be talking about that budget anymore tonight. Thank you very much. Article 5.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the town treasurer and town collector to enter into a compensating balance agreement with a banking institution for fiscal year 2023 pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 53F of the Massachusetts General Laws.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
Article 5 simply allows town officials to put your money in an interest-bearing account. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,800, said sum to be expended for social services in accordance with programs as approved by the Select Board.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second the motion.
Article 6 is your standard contribution each year to local social services. Questions, comments, discussion? There being none, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000, said sum to be expended as the town of Clinton's share of the Wachusett Health Education Acton Team, otherwise known as WHEAT, Inc., which committee is a delegate agency of the United Way of Tri-County.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second the motion.
Article 7 is our annual assessment to WHEAT. Every year you'll see this on the warrant. Any questions? If not, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 8.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half of the Massachusetts General Laws to set the limits on the total amounts that may be expended from each of the town's revolving funds established under the town's administrative bylaws. Gas plumbing inspection, spending limit $35,000. Council on Aging, $20,000. Town hall use, $5,000. Old home day, $30,000. Fuller Field, $5,000. Town clerk, $10,000.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second the motion.
This is another annual article that simply sets limits on the amount of money that various groups can take from their revolving account every year. Any questions? If not, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate from the Assessor Overlay Reserve Account the sum of $50,000, said sum to be used to fund the Veterans and Senior Tax Rebate Program for fiscal year 2023.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second the motion.
All right, this article is a little bit different, a bit new, and that is it's $50,000 for the tax rebate program, which traditionally in the past has helped senior citizens to work off their taxes. This year, we've added veterans to that group, which is actually the next article, but I just want you to know that the $50,000 is in a fund that will allow senior citizens and veterans of any age to be able to work off their taxes. Any questions? If not, all in favor? Cards up. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5N, to establish a property tax work-off program for taxpayers who are veterans.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. And this is what I mentioned before. This is new to the town of Clinton. It's a property tax work-off program, but it's strictly for our veterans. Any questions? Yes, sir.
George J. Oberg, 176 Pearl Street, Clinton, Mass. I'm 81 years old, and they want me to go work a job. I worked 60 years in the business, and now they want me to go to work for peanuts. You know, these guys, I don't know what's going on with the veterans and everything else, but they deserve more than the 50 grand, believe me, if they're going to go work.
Any other questions or comments on the tax write-off program? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Hi, Deb Goodsell, 12 Spring Street, Clinton. The Senior Center actually runs the tax work-off program, and this has been ongoing for as long as I've been the Senior Center Director, and basically it's $750 off your taxes. It's based on minimum wage, so you actually just put in that many volunteer hours, and you get that off your taxes. And just for an example, and I love Jidge, but as an example, my Tuesday receptionist is 100 years old, and she volunteers at the Senior Center. So, and it's just, there's so many different opportunities. This is the first year we're involving veterans, so we can have different opportunities for veterans, and it's not anything hard. It's just something for the town, for you to, help out with. And Judge, you could run a program at the Senior Center, and we can count that.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
It seems like my GJ over at 176 Pearl Street, Clinton, Mass. We go through this almost all the time. The veterans are always getting the low end of the stick in this country. Most of us, or many of us, even a lot of veterans sitting over there, they had the oath. They wanted the oath, and we gave it to them. All that they wanted was a fair share. And to work off $750, that is nothing. You can't even buy groceries today for that kind of money. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, it's time to vote, I guess. This article, again, establishes a property tax work-off program for veterans. All in favor, cards up, and opposed. The article is approved. Thank you. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $100,000 to the Health Insurance Trust Fund.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, Article 11 simply takes money already in the town coffers and puts it in the Health Insurance Trust Fund. Any questions? If not, all in favor, cards up, and opposed. Thank you. The article is approved. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $500,000 to the Stabilization Fund.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, Article 12, again, takes money from free cash, puts it in our stabilization fund. Again, this is money already in our town. Questions?
Mr. Moderator?
Yep.
I just want to take a second to credit Town Administrator Michael Ward and the town's finance team. When people think of our burgeoning success story. I think they look at downtown and all the sexy things, but what a lot of people don't realize is that the work behind the scenes allows for things like this. This is a transfer that, if the Finance Committee can correct me, I think it's 4 or 5 times what we usually do. Our bond rating is up. We are financially sound in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. So I just want to make sure you people understand, in an age when some towns very close to here are paying for their budget out of free cash, we're able to put 4 or 5 times what we normally do away in a rainy day fund for when things aren't so great, and that is owed to Mr. Ward and the financial team here. I couldn't thank them enough.
I just want to add, and I believe I'm correct, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that this is the first town meeting where you're not going to come across an article, a borrowing article. I mean, borrowing money from a bank. First time in a long, long time, there is no borrowing. That's really says something about the town getting financially better off, finally. All right, we need to vote on Article 12, though. So, all in favor of Article 12 signify raising your card, and opposed. Thank you very much. Article is approved. Article 12.
13.
What?
That was 12. Yes? I usually lose track. 13. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund the sum of $175,000, said sum to be used for the support of cable access related services, programming, and equipment.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Thanks for that correction. Of all things, I had an extra article in there. Just what we need, another one. All right, Article 13 is money, again, already in your cable TV account, and it's taking $175,000 and using it for services, programming, and equipment. Any questions?
Mr. Moderator,
yes.
While I'm handing out kudos, we were able to hire a cable director in the past year, and as people have pointed out, we're trying to do interesting things with the cable station. It helped get through the pandemic with Greenlight Studios and the sports. I just want to say I'm not sure I look any better, but for the first time in 5 years, I can actually hear what people are saying, because usually it's just mud. So thank you, Mark McMinn, for making this a meeting where I actually know what's going on for a change. Thank you.
So, Article 13, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. Article 13 is approved. Article 14.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the Landfill Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $3,200,000 to the Capital Projects and Infrastructure Improvements Stabilization Fund.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Now all we want to do here is move $3.2 million from an enterprise fund to a stabilization fund, the Capital Projects and Infrastructure Improvements Stabilization Fund, in order to use it. Questions? If not, all in favor? Cards up and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 15.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the Landfill Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $1 million, said sum to be used for Phase 1 and Phase 2 landfill closure and South Meadow Pond dredging project and all related work.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
So Article 15 simply transfers retained earnings from the Landfill Enterprise Fund in order to complete the landfill project, finally. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the Capital Projects and Infrastructure Improvements Stabilization Fund the sum of $1 million, said sum to be expended by the Department of Public Works for road resurfacing and infrastructure improvements as approved by the Board of Selectmen and Select Board.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, because we're taking money out of a stabilization fund, all right, the Capital Projects and Infrastructure Improvements Stabilization Fund, for road resurfacing and infrastructure improvements, which I think we all agree may be needed, we need a two-thirds vote. So, any questions or comments? All in favor, cards up, And opposed? Thank you. The article passes 2/3. Article 17.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Public Works for the purchase of an F-350 pickup truck.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, DPW, new truck. Questions? All in favor, cards up. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 18.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000, said sum to be expended for the purchase of data collection radar speed signs.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, $25,000 to purchase data collection radar speed signs. Brian Coyne, that scares me a little bit. I hope, but anyway. Any questions? All in favor, cards up, please. 25,000. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 19.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $2,500, said sum to be expended by the Veterans Agent for a memorial plaque honoring Persian Gulf veterans.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, this is from your Veterans Office, $2,500 memorial plaque to honor local Persian Gulf veterans. It'll be right out here on the corner with the other honorees. Any questions? If not, all in favor, cards up. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $49,000, said sum to be expended by the Assessor's Office to defray the cost of performing the state-mandated property revaluation for fiscal year 2024.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, Article 20 is asking your permission for your approval for $49,000. State-mandated property reevaluations are coming up soon. We need to do that. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor of Article 20 and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. 21.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $420,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Facilities and Grounds for HVAC work at school and town buildings.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
Article 21, Facilities Department, $420,000 for HVAC work at school and town buildings. Questions? If not, all in favor? Aye. Hands up and opposed? Thank you. Article 21 is approved. 22.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $125,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Facilities and Grounds for the rental and purchase of mobile generators at the Clinton Middle School.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, Facilities Department, $125,000, has to do with mobile generators used at the Clinton Middle School. Questions? If not, all in favor? Cards up and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 23.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer for free cash the sum of $140,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Facilities and Grounds for the upgrade and replacement of auditorium lighting and sound system at the Clinton High School.
Mr. Moderator, I'll make a motion second.
$140,000 for a total upgrade of lighting and sound system at Clinton High School's auditorium, which is probably long overdue if you've been up there for plays and things like that. Any questions? If not, all in favor, cards up. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 24.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the appropriation authorization under Article 31 from the 2020 annual town meeting to allow these funds to be used for the design, purchase, and installation of additional lighting systems at Savage Field, and to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $250,000, said sums to be expended by the Facilities and Grounds Department to fund said project.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second this motion.
Thank you. All right, so what this is looking for from our voters is the allowance of using the leftover funds from the Little League field that was lit last year, or the year before, of $85,000 is left in that account, and now appropriate another $250,000 to complete the lighting project for the softball field down at Vale Street. So the Little League field has been done. We want to use the leftover money plus $250,000 to do the softball field. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor, cards up, and opposed? Thank you very much. The article is approved. Article 25.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $525,000, excuse me, journalism major, $525,000, said sum to be expended for the renovation and repair of the Clinton Senior Center.
Mr. Moderator, I'll make a motion. We second it.
All right, this is to renovate and repair our beautiful senior citizen center. A lot of renovation is needed. I believe a handicap ramp or lift of some kind. It's a beautiful spot, as you know, and I guess I better just shut up at that. But we know it's needed up there. Any questions? If not, all in favor and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. 26.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000, said sum to be expended by the Department of Facilities and Grounds for replacement of a water valve at Fuller Field.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
Okay, Article 26 looks to spend money on a major water valve in the sprinkler system down at Fuller Field. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor, cards up, please, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 27.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000, said sum to be expended by the Parks and Recreation Commission for a condition assessment of the Fuller Field, of the field house and concession stand at Fuller Field.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, this is looking, Article 27 is looking for $25,000 to do a full assessment of what's needed to renovate the Kenneth Johnson Fieldhouse and the concession stand at Fuller Field. And this is not for any actual work. This is a thorough study of what is needed to bring that building back up to code. Any questions? If not, all in favor, cards up, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry, Judge, missed you. Heat stroke up here.
I was formerly on the Parks and Rec and Fuller Field Commission, and it's really, this building is a disgrace. I don't think we have to spend $25,000 to somebody to come down there and tell us it's in bad shape. John Gorman took care of this building himself. He worked hard. He made sure the pipes were right. And all of a sudden now we're going to spend $25,000 to tell us that the building's in rough shape. We knew this 20 years ago. Thank you.
Any other comments? We certainly know that building needs a lot of work, plumbing, electrical. It's not up to code now. We'd love to see it in use. Obviously, it was dedicated to a World War I veteran, I believe, Kenneth Johnson, and it has been a disgrace for a while. It needs to be fixed up. Any other comments? If not, all in favor of 25,000 study, thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 28.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $5,000, said sum to be expended by the police chief to fund retroactive wages as part of a negotiated agreement between the town of Clinton through the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, and Public Safety Dispatchers through Mass Cop Local 490 for the period July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, having been negotiated in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 150E, as amended.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, this is needed to fund retroactive wages for a one-year contract for our public safety dispatchers. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor, cards up, please. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 29.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $400,000 and authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen Select Board, to expend said sum for design services to the Mass Central Rail Trail Clinton and project costs associated with developing a detailed plan for the remediation of the tunnel and a design for the trail bed, provided, however, that the funds appropriated hereunder shall not be expended unless the town is approved for a Mass Trails grant from the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation or other grant source in the amount of $300,000.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, Article 29 is asking you to front $400,000 for design services and project costs for the Mass Rail Trail here in Clinton. And again, it's important to note that this money is contingent on Clinton getting a $300,000 grant. So if we don't get the grant, there is no purchase, obviously. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Cards up. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 30 is related to that. Go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the sum of $100,000 and authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen Select Board, to expend said sum for design services for the Mass Central Rail Trail Clinton and project costs associated with developing a detailed plan for the remediation of the tunnel and a design for the trail bed, provided, however, that the funds appropriated hereunder shall not be expended unless the town is approved for a Mass Trails grant from the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation or other grant source in the amount of $100,000.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
So Article 30 is related. It's asking you to front $100,000 for an additional grant. This is a different grant for the tunnel and railroad bed remediation. Once again, if there's no grant, there's no purchase. So if you put those two articles together, it means that the project will spend $500,000, $500,000, but the town of Clinton is only responsible for $100,000, and that's only if we get the grants. Yes.
Before vote is taken on this, I just want to take a minute to thank Franny Hodge and her team from the Clinton Greenway Trust. This project has been in place, I believe, for upwards of 20 years, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the town if we're lucky enough to acquire the grants. But without their dedication, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor of Article 30, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 31.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote pursuant to Chapter 32, Section 103 of the Massachusetts General Laws to increase the current retirement cost of living, to increase the current retirement cost of living adjustment base amount from $14,000 to $18,000.
Mr. Moderator, I'll make a second motion.
All right, Article 31 is about the town retirement system, and it's a cost of living increase. Most cost of livings are based on only a certain percentage of a pension or whatever. So it was $14,000, and they're looking for a new base of $18,000 for only the town's retirement system. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor of Article 31, cards up, and opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 32.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the administrative bylaws to change all references to town treasurer and town collector to treasurer collector.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, this is simply housekeeping. All right, in the current bylaws, town treasurer and town collector are referred to separately. And several years ago, as you know, we combined these positions. So now all we want to do is reflect that wording, and every time you see town treasurer and town collector, you'll now see treasurer-collector. It's housekeeping. All in favor? Cards up, and opposed? Thank you. Article is approved. Article 33. Three.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the peddling and soliciting door-to-door solicitors bylaw to include the following new paragraph. No solicitation list. A no solicitation list shall be established and maintained by the Clinton Police Department. Residents may submit their property for inclusion on the list without charge. Upon approval of the issuance of a license as provided herein, each such licensed entity or individual shall be provided with a copy of the no solicitation list and may not solicit or canvass at such property.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
So this article is from your police chief, and it simply sets up a no solicitation list or a no-knock list. So if a solicitor, like they should do, go to the police station in order to get permission to knock on doors, the police department, I understand, would give them a list that says you cannot approach these addresses, and it would behoove you to call or to let the police department know that you want to be on that list, and the solicitor would get that and not be able to approach your property. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Hands up. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Article 34.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the administrative bylaws by adding the following new article captioned Suspension or Revocation of Licenses or Permits for Non-Payment of Taxes as set forth below for the purpose of allowing the local licensing authority to suspend or revoke a license or permit to any entity without outstanding local taxes, fines, or fees. And I would ask that we waive the reading of the statute, seeing it was passed by town meeting 2 years ago.
Amen.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second that motion.
All right, it looks very complicated, but it's really not. 2 years ago, at town meeting, we accepted the state statute about suspension or revocation of licenses or permits for non-payment of taxes. That's a done deal. But we did not complete step 2, which is creating the local bylaw that reflects that. So you'll see on the next page of your warrant, all that wording that you see here all came from the state. It's kind of just an automatic thing. They send us the state-required language, and you have to accept it as an official bylaw in the town of Clinton. Any questions or comments on that? There being none, all in favor, cards up. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is approved. Go ahead. Article 35?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the personnel bylaw in section 3.2-3 by deleting the personnel board and replacing it with the town administrator in the second sentence as the entity to approve or disapprove the starting rate for new employee appointments.
I'll second.
Do you want to speak on that?
Yes, please.
Just give me a second. All right, so this article, I think, was tabled from last year, and since the Personnel Board was formed, this is my understanding, sometimes there's negotiations where people come in and the Personnel Board says you belong on step 3, and they say, no, I think because of past experience, I belong on step 5, and there's a certain amount of negotiations or whatever. I believe, if I have it right, and Mr. DeVault will explain this, this would take that duty away from the Personnel Board and then give it to our town administrator to do that kind of negotiations.
So basically, what we're trying to do here is to have a system similar to the schools where the pay scale would still be set by the Personnel Board, but the town administrator, on a case-by-case basis, would have the authority to place a new hire within that scale depending on the experience of that person. That's the way the superintendent does it with teachers. The superintendent doesn't have to go to the school committee every time he hires a teacher. It's to be able to make the negotiations when we have finalists to go smoother. We're dealing, since I've been on the board, I've seen twice where we've had finalists and they're in negotiations about where they should be on the salary scale. The way that it is now, we have to keep going back to the Personnel Board, and they meet once a month. Sometimes they may meet out of step, but often they don't. So when you're trying to figure out, you're negotiating with somebody, I've seen it happen twice where they just get frustrated and you lose out on good applicants because you have to keep waiting for a board to make decisions on where someone should land in the pay scale. I'm fine with the personnel board setting the pay scale up, but if we want to be serious and move at a normal pace when we're hiring people, I think it's only fair to give the town administrator that discretion to place somebody within that scale. And right now we're in the middle of hiring somebody. We're going through the situation again where we have a finalist and they're trying to figure out what is a market salary for this person. And if we have to keep going back to the personnel board every time there's a negotiation, it just delays everything. It's unnecessary. The personnel board should set the pay scale, but the town administrator should have the discretion to place somebody within that pay scale, and that's all that this article would do. It would basically align us with the same kind of methodology that the process that the schools have.
Yes.
Lisa Prophet, 434 Water Street, Chairman of the Personnel Board. I'm not going to push my luck on this one, but the Personnel Board is opposed to this. So the current process right now for negotiations is that step one is by default the starting salary for any employee. And now that we have a new 15-step system, people are able to negotiate within that 15-step system and get hired anywhere within that system. And the Personnel Board has no problem with that whatsoever based on an individual's qualifications. Currently, that process belongs at the Personnel Board level. They would absolutely meet more often than once a month if need be. A lot of times people don't take a job and it has nothing to do with the board. They leverage their application, or for various reasons they back out. I don't believe that this Personnel Board has been at fault for anybody who's actually left. So currently there's a 5-member board. There's 3 women, 2 men of all ages. We meet once a month. It's an open process. It's a posted process. So we talk about transparency. Anybody that wants to understand where we're putting somebody on the grid, department head can come and view the meeting. The press can come and view the meeting. Any employee who wants to understand why somebody was put on the grid, where they were, they can come and view that process. Selectmen are advocating for transparency. We currently have a very transparent process, and they're trying to shut that down. I have absolute faith in the town administrator. He's been here for 35 years. He understands the process more than anybody. I respect his opinion, I respect his judgment, and he would absolutely do the right thing. And this is absolutely in no way an affront against the town administrator. The only problem I have is that it closes the process. And so when people start to negotiate or things get political, this process is a hidden process as opposed to what it is now, which is transparent, and I think that that's how we should keep it, and we would advocate for you to vote no on this article. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ed.
Bill.
Oh.
Mr. Moderator, Bill Conley, 46 Winthrop Street. After the previous votes and discussions, I certainly don't want to take on Ms. Prophet on this topic, but I believe it's a very important one for the success of this town. When I first got elected, I used to be up there. When I first got elected, nobody in this building reported to the town administrator. Everybody was sort of independent and autonomous. And over my tenure on the board, the current members and previous members, we worked diligently with the support of town meeting to professionalize the hiring process in the town of Clinton. And that includes the work of the Personnel Board. But on this particular topic, when you're hiring people like town administrators or human resource people or the facility director or any of these positions that didn't even exist a few years ago in this town, the person most knowledgeable about the demands and the needs of those positions is the town administrator. Because in many cases, he's been doing that job supplementary because we didn't have people to do it. He is the hiring authority, not the Board of Selectmen for these positions. It's not a political decision. It is an administrative decision, and at the point that after doing searches and studies and interviews and winnowing out all this, sometimes you might get 20 or 30 applicants that are perfectly valid. When you get down to the guy you want, the town administrator wants, he should be able to hire that person based on his understanding of the job responsibilities and the qualifications that are required, because he's the most competent person to do that. We shouldn't be hiring the cheapest employee, we should be hiring the best. And I don't mean that the Personnel Board in any way does that, but the slow process of going back and forth to the Personnel Board after you've selected a candidate and you're sitting down with them at a table takes too long. And there's nobody in this building that's more capable of making those decisions for you in your best interest than the town administrator. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
John Woodsmall, 17 James Street. I'm a municipal manager in another nearby town, and it would drive me nuts having to go to a personnel board for every hire that I have to do. We talk a lot of times, people like to talk about government acting more like businesses and being more efficient, and this is just a first step, well, not first step, one of the steps that the town has taken to modernize its operations over the past years, and giving the town administrator the ability to slot new people in. It just makes the hiring process that much more efficient. I've worked in towns where we've had to wait, and you wait for the personnel board, and I'm not saying this is the personnel board here, but just in general, you bring somebody in and you tell them, well, this is the salary we want to give you, but we have to go to this board and they have to vote on it, and I think they'll vote for it. It shouldn't be a problem, but you never know. So, and then the person sits there for 2 weeks waiting to hear, and it's just an antiquated old process that doesn't fit for modern times.
Any other questions or comments? All right, on Article 35, it's time to vote. All those in favor of moving the Personnel Board's negotiation piece to the town administrator, please signify by raising your card now. And opposed? The article is approved. Thank you. Article 36.
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 36.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I move Article 36.
36 is, you want to table it?
No, I move the article.
Oh, okay, without reading it, I'm sorry.
It's a citizen's petition.
Yes, it's a citizen's petition, and I'm going to be the guy that gets the tomatoes thrown at him for the next two, I can tell you right now. But Article 36 is obviously a legitimate concern for people, certain people on Greeley Street. It's a citizen's petition about new sidewalks. Now, some of you know that there are new sidewalks on Greeley Street going up the hill on the right-hand side. They're all done, and I think they look pretty good. Several residents have been concerned about safety and other things on the other side of the street. And they're in your warrant, the addresses, 227, 235, 243, 245, 267, and 293 Greeley, the other side of the street. I've been told that this is more of a referendum, which means we can discuss it, we can vote on it, but you need to know that it's a non-binding thing. If all of you vote for this, the town is under no obligation to rush up there next week and put sidewalks on the other side of the street. But it would show that you know, you feel that it's an important thing to do, and obviously it's important to some of these people on Greeley Street. So, Any questions?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Just a bit of context. I'm not speaking for or against this, but I just want to, so everyone understood how we approach these projects. Obviously, if you've been around town in the past few years, it's clear that the town and this board is committed to walkability. It's a huge point of emphasis for us. That being said, sidewalks are not cheap. We get from the state, I think, about $340,000 a year. To put that into perspective, I think the project, and again, this isn't just sidewalks, but the Little Water Street from High Street to Main Street, down by where the new Brazilian place is going in, I think that was closer to $500,000. Infrastructure is not cheap. We've been very resourceful as far as going after state and federal grants, and we've been very fortunate in that the landfill has been very profitable. So we put in, and I think we did tonight, we're putting in millions as opposed to that $340,000. Despite that abundance of blessings, we have to pick and choose still. Everyone would like a sidewalk on their street, and the reason we chose sidewalks on one side of the street was because of foot traffic. Most of the traffic going to the hospital is on the other side of the street, or it's, sorry, let me check my notes here. We stopped the sidewalks at Highland Street on the east side because there's very little foot traffic on this side of the road. Most of the foot traffic on this portion of Highland Street is headed to St. John's Cemetery. We put in a sidewalk to accommodate these pedestrians on the west side of the road. Hospital is obviously an important asset for the town. It's also a destination that sees very little foot traffic. The majority of the minimal foot traffic to the hospital is coming from the south side of Greeley Street, which is where sidewalks are now. Again, I'm not speaking for or against this, but we do put some thought into where these things happen, and I just wanted you to have some context. So,
thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Anyone? Yes.
Jillian O'Malley, 245 Greeley Street. I was one of the people that started this citizens petition. If you want to just put into context, would you ever put a sidewalk on Main Street opposite the high school and the middle school? No, that doesn't make sense. And they decided that the hospital didn't need a sidewalk on the side of the hospital. So that is where this stemmed from. Also, their answer to me a couple meetings ago was to go down Highland, which is the ambulance entrance. That doesn't have a sidewalk either. So if your loved one was in a wheelchair, there is no access to the hospital. And for buses, children are asked to sit in the middle of the street, or they made one at my house for me, but there is no actual sidewalk on the hospital side. Once you get to the hospital, there's no way to gain access there. So that's why we are asking for the sidewalks be made the rest of the way up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak in favor of this. I know everyone has sidewalks, so it's kind of a tricky thing, but I think what makes this unique is the hospital's up there. Hospital is critical to this town, so any infrastructure that we can invest around the hospital, I think, is a plus for the town, so I am in favor of that. Also, I have fielded some complaints with the ambulances coming into the hospital down that street. They have a tendency in emergencies, drive very fast, and it would help out as a safety consideration to have the high sidewalks and make sure on both sides of the street that people can walk safely. So I'm here to speak in favor of this article.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, it's time to vote. All in favor of this citizen's petition signify by raising your card now, and opposed. The article is approved. Thank you. Now again, again, it's non-binding, but your selectmen know about this now, your select board, your DPW head knows that this is of concern to citizens, and hopefully something will get done. Last article.
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 37.
All right, Article 37 is another thing that...
Can we get a second?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Thanks. It's another citizen's petition. It's to help out our veterans and reduce their property tax by 50%. Now, I've already been told that the town has no real authority to act on this. It's something that comes from the state level, through some kind of special legislation or something like that. However, once again, this is obviously important to our veterans, and our veterans are precious to us. So we certainly will talk about it. If someone wants to come forward, Jid, you want to come forward and talk about this, please? But again, it's another non-binding, but we can hear what has to be said and hopefully do
T.J.
something.
Oberg, 176 Pearl Street, Clinton, Mass. We're not asking the federal government, we're not asking the state of Massachusetts, we're asking the people of Clinton. We've always supported our veterans, and if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be sitting here today. You know, we'd be speaking different languages. So I hope that you would vote yes on this thing. Thank you.
Any? Yes.
Jim Webster at 90 Haskell Ave. I'm a veteran, 4 years in the United States Navy. One of those years was boots on the ground in Vietnam, Tet Offensive, all of that stuff. I love and respect all my fellow veterans. I actually talk with a lot of them online all the time. I'm actually part of a forum. But I have to say I don't think that as a veteran I should pay less taxes on my property than all my fellow neighbors and citizens. I should also point out that as a veteran, I and other veterans do have access to a lot of services that other citizens don't get. And I believe we're entitled to them. I'm glad that we're able to get them. In my own case, the house that my wife and I live in was purchased with a Veterans Administration guaranteed mortgage. My education at the University of Massachusetts was subsidized by the Veterans Administration. And I know a lot of other veterans take advantage of the Veterans Administration hospitals. I get medical care, some of my medical care, prescriptions. These glasses I'm wearing right now were new a couple of months ago from the VA. So I'm just saying, as veterans, there's a lot of services we get, we're entitled to, that a lot of other non-veterans don't have. I appreciate that we have them, and I just ask you to vote no on this article. Thank you.
Again, in our discussions beforehand, this apparently is deemed illegal by the Department of Revenue because it sets up a separate group of some kind. And we all want to help our veterans. That's a no doubt type of thing. This may not be the way to do it. But again, we can vote on it, but it is not binding, and apparently even unlike the last one, which at least is your opinion or whatever, this is a little different. I don't think locally we can do this. Only the state can say Clinton can do this. Yep. Move the question. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, just a quick thing. And illegal or not, in my 5 years here, we've worked at the assessor's office. We're certainly not trying to price anybody out of town. We've increased the senior rebate program by 20,000, if that's right, 30,000, and we tonight added veterans. So if that number's not adequate, we're happy to look at that and work with veterans, just like we work with the seniors, to make sure that those $750 rebates are available to everybody who needs one. So I'm happy to have that discussion anytime, and I'm sure the assessor's office will continue their cooperation with us in making sure that if people need that relief, that they get it.
Thank you. Someone had moved the question, so let us do that right now. All in favor of moving the question, stopping discussion, and do that. Cards up to move the question, stop discussion. Thank you. And opposed? All right, it's time to vote. Article 37. All in favor of the 50% tax rate decrease reduction for veterans, Article 37, please signify by raising your card now. And opposed? The article is defeated. Sorry. All right. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Mr. Moderator, I move we adjourn.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Don't forget, next Monday is Election Day, 7 a.m. here to 8 p.m. Your town elections. Thank you for coming.